Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are carrying invisible weight. The kind that keeps you moving, keeps you working, keeps you chasing. Because slowing down feels unfamiliar, maybe even dangerous. We live in a world that celebrates exhaustion like it's proof that your life matters. Push harder, work longer, stay busy. And somewhere along the way, burnout started looking a lot like ambition. But eventually, life has a way of catching up to us, of forcing us to sit still long enough to ask ourselves if we're truly living or just surviving efficiently. Maybe real strength isn't found in how much pain we can carry. Maybe it's found in finally facing it. My name is Dan Bradley, and this is Braving the Brightside. Hello, Brightsiders, and welcome to the Bright Side. I hope all's well out there, no matter what season you're in. Here in Philly, the temperatures keep slowly crawling up and then plummeting back down, and then crawling back up and then plummeting back down. It's literally like one day it's 80 degrees and beautiful. The next day it feels like winter's back. Everybody's sick. Everybody's coughing. Everybody's pretending they're not sick while standing about 6 inches away from you in the grocery store. But regardless, we inch closer to summertime. So, boy howdy. Really can't wait. Just because I know you're going to ask, the animals, John Ralphio, my Sphinx, and Vigo, my puppy dog, are doing well. The Phillies are finally playing competent baseball again. So thank you for asking about that. What else? Yes. Now comes the shameless plugging. Fun news here. You can now find us on the TikTok at Braving the Brightside, where we'll be posting more clips from interviews, behind the scenes content, and whatever other weird little adventures this podcast evolves into. Be patient with me though, because these are still new waters for me, and I'm kind of trying to figure out that balance between podcast host and, a guy aggressively pointing at captions on the internet. So, I'm not trying to be an influencer here. Just trying to hang out and spread the good word of the podcast. Also some big news. This is actually some really big news. So maybe you should sit down. Or if you're not already sitting down, maybe you should stand up. I don't know what I'm saying. All right. Pre-sale for my upcoming book, Combing Through the Wreckage, officially goes live next week. Boy, howdy. You can follow us on Instagram at braving_the brightside and over at TikTok for details for where to grab it. I'm rounding the corner on finishing this thing, and honestly, I'm pretty excited for you to read it. It's part memoir, part cautionary tale, part firsthand account of what can happen when you finally decide to take off the mask and live a more honest life. So, stay tuned for that. Exciting things all around. All right, let's jump into the feel-good news segment. All right. Before we jump into this segment, I don't know if you can hear or tell, but I'm actually joined by a co-anchor suddenly, a co-host for this next segment. John Ralphio, my hairless Sphinx, is joining us for this. I don't know if you can hear him purring, but he's here on my shoulder, digging in, quite literally. So he's going to join us for this segment. So you're welcome, really. All right. So despite what the algorithm wants you to believe, the world is not entirely on fire. There are still people helping other people, animals getting second chances, scientists doing wildly cool things, and communities stepping up. Every once in a while, humanity actually remembers, well, how to humanity. So grab your coffee, your protein shake, your Celsius, or your emotional support snack, whatever it takes. Let's just clean this palate a little, shall we? This is your feel-good news segment. It's a little animal, Heavy this week, just a heads up, but you know what I mean? These stories, whatever. I like these stories, so just deal with it. Number 1, cat rescued after being trapped in tree for 8 days. In New Britain, a cat named Cleo spent more than a week stranded high up on a tree before a local tree service company stepped in to help, free of charge. Obviously free of charge. What monster would charge for that? The rescue crew used a massive lift, cat food, and a whole lot of patience to safely reunite Chloe with her family. Number 2, husky reunited with owner after 12 years. Boy, howdy. A husky named Sierra disappeared back in 2014 and somehow ended up over 1,400 miles away before finally being identified through a microchip. Her owner had spent over a decade wondering what happened to her. Now, at 13 years old, she's finally home. That's insane. If this doesn't emotionally body slam you a little bit, then, I don't know, check your pulse, because that's wild. Not quite as dramatic, but still pretty cool. Dog reunites with owner after losing an entire home in wildfires. After devastating wildfires destroy their home in Los Angeles area, a dog named Blade had been cared for by a Humane Society shelter for over a year while his owner rebuilt his life. 15 months later, they were finally reunited, and shelter workers said there wasn't a dry eye in the room, which, yeah, that makes sense. Next up, scientists hit major solar energy breakthrough. Researchers in Japan developed a new solar technology that captures energy previously lost as heat, something many scientists thought wasn't possible, meaning cleaner energy keeps getting more efficient and more affordable. Slow progress is still progress, and honestly, humanity needs a few wins in the innovation department right now. Next up, a major Balkan river has finally freed. I don't even know what that means. Balkan. After decades of concrete wartime obstruction, 44 miles of a major river in the Balkans, I feel like I'm saying that wrong, has finally been restored and allowed to flow naturally again. Ecosystems are already recovering, wildlife is returning, and entire communities are seeing cleaner water and healthier environments. Next up, butterfly species returning after 100 years. Butterfly species, not butterfly kisses. Don't get this confused. Butterfly Kisses is a terrible song that came out in the 90s. This is about butterfly species. A butterfly species believed extinct in the United Kingdom for nearly a century is now being reintroduced through conservation efforts and rewilding projects. Tiny reminder that extinction doesn't always have to be the final chapter if people actually care enough to fix things. Last but not least, Jamaica sees massive drop in violent crime. Jamaica recently reported a roughly 40% drop in murders. Look at that. Largely attributed to increased community cooperation and public tip-offs. Not every headline has to be about collapse. Sometimes communities slowly begin pulling themselves back together. So look at that, everybody. A little bit of less murder in Jamaica. That's some good news. So proof that underneath the chaos, the outrage, the nonsense, there are still people rescuing cats, rebuilding lives, reuniting families, restoring rivers, and refusing to give up on each other. Look, the world's heavy sometimes. We all know that. But don't let the darkness convince you it's the only thing out there. So, that is your feel-good news segment. All right, Brightsiders. Today's guest is someone whose story and perspective really hit home for me. Blaz Marolt has spent years helping people navigate growth, resilience, and the often messy process of becoming who they're meant to be. What I appreciate most is that this conversation doesn't really come from a place of perfection or trying to be perfect. It comes from honesty, experience, and real life. And what a crazy real life it is. So wherever you are right now, driving, working out, walking the dog, hiding in your car outside of work for 10 extra minutes before going back inside, I think there's something in this one for you. So without further ado, let's jump over and meet Blaz. Today's guest is Blaz Marolt, a leadership coach, operations strategist, and graduate in the United States Military Academy, whose work helps entrepreneurs and leaders build stronger systems, lead with greater clarity, and create businesses that actually support their lives instead of consuming them. But beyond the framework and operations, Blaz brings a powerful perspective on discipline, pressure, leadership, and what it takes to pursue excellence without you losing yourself in the process. Welcome to Braving the Brightside, my friend. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing really well. How about you?
I'm doing all right. It's gorgeous out. It's a nice 80 degrees out over here in Philly.
Wow. It's
Where are
around.
you at right now?
I'm in Slovenia, where I was born. And it's around, so in Fahrenheit, it would be around 55 at the moment.
Nice.
So it's a little bit chillier than where you are. I wish I was where you are right now.
Do you guys, are you in summer right now? Is that what's happening? Or where are you at now?
So we're in spring pretty much.
Right. Okay.
But since it's April, so I don't know like how it is where you are from, but April is usually rains. It rains all the time. So right now it's cloudy, it's miserable, and I don't like it. I'm waiting on May and June, so it gets warmer.
Yeah, I believe a poet once wrote, and this is a very strong line here: April showers bring May flowers. So, you know, poetic.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, listen, let's just jump into it. All right. Let's have you introduce yourself to the world here. For people meeting you for the first time, who is Blaz beyond the resume and business titles?
Yes. So, as you mentioned before, I usually don't introduce myself that I was a graduate from the U.S. Military Academy, but that's always a really interesting part in a snippet of my life, specifically since I was born in Slovenia and I'm a foreign national. I don't have a U.S. citizenship or a passport. And beyond all of the things that I've done so in my career, because in my career, you could say like that I've been on an upward trajectory all of the time. I am a person who lived a lot of trauma in the past. So as a childhood, I was abused and all of that stuff. And I always seem to manage kind of like having it together, or at least that what would it seem. Even though on the inside, you know, I was hollow and it was burning me on the inside. I used a lot of energy just to make sure that I was able to function. Right. And that led, of course, to around 2 to 2.5 big burnouts that I had, and kind of like the rediscovery of what you just amazingly introduced me, what I do at the moment, which is I coach and I help leaders and business owners to build systems, even lead their teams, and pretty much make sure that they follow their own path, what their goals are, what their vision is, so that they don't get burnout, they don't get just fed up with what they're doing, and that they follow their own path and where it leads them. Because all of us have our own path, all of us have our own goals. And I truly do believe that one thing, that I don't want to conform by your goals or your vision for what I do. I want to conform but what I think I need or what I want. And that's me.
Amazing. Your story is pretty cool. Now, you know, growing up in Slovenia, you know, what did life look like? And how did you end up, I guess, on this path that you know, to end up in the military academy at one point too? So
growing up, like, I mean, for me at that time, it felt normal because it pretty much, you don't know anything like what the world is around. Like you can only see what your environment and your experiences are. So for me, it was just go to school. I played soccer and I was on the Slovenian national team when I was between 14 and 18. But around year 15, 16, I wanted to go into the military. And it just really interested me. And the military still interests me and everything that is going on. But what I found out later on was pretty much the military had organization, it had stability and structure. And those are all the things that I never had as a child. So, you know, waking up at a specific time, doing what they tell you to do, at least at the beginning. Then I actually have to tell other people what they needed to do and lead them, right? But it was just like kind of like almost a relief. It was like, oh
Yeah.
wow, like I don't need to think about anything. People are just going to tell me what to do, and I'm going to do it. Uh, and yeah, and then I got the opportunity to apply. So that was in 2007 to apply to go to the U.S. Military Academy. And after a long, I think it was like an 8-month process where we had to do all of the physical exams, mental exams. And so we also had to do the SATs and then an English version of the test, since the English SATs for foreigners are a little bit too difficult to actually grade you upon. I sent up my application packet to West Point, and then they selected me from a bunch of Slovenians and also a bunch of other foreigners that also applied for it. So I got into West Point in 2008 and graduated in 2012.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah. Thank
That's
you.
incredible stuff. So I like that you were seeking structure, as so many young people do usually,
Yep.
especially when they come from chaotic backgrounds or, I take it there wasn't a whole lot of structure for you in terms of how you were living your life or how you were growing up or.
No, the only structure I can tell you that I had was when I woke up in the morning, I had my whole day filled with stuff. So that was school. After school, it was always practice, either soccer or track practice. Then I had English lessons. Even I think I went into computer lessons. Pretty much from morning till late at night, I was always working and always doing something. So at that point, I thought it was amazing. It was productive, but now I know that I was, just running away from the traumas that were producing me. And I had to do something so that I wasn't living with myself and like I didn't need to cope with the stuff that was actually happening to me.
Right. Right.
I figured it out later on. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's usually what happens. How long, throughout your journey, in the military and everything like that, as you you chased structure and you started finding that, and you started finding your footing, was there a moment where you feel like, okay, now I have to take on this trauma head on? Do I have to address, like everyone has, I feel like that moment too, when you have that trauma and then you're like, oh shit. Okay. Well, I guess I gotta face this thing now.
Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of like
military or.
No, actually, it was after the military. The only thing that I knew, even when I was going into, so when I was in the military, it was that I was going to have to face it at some point.
Yeah.
But I always kept postponing. It doesn't matter. It's gonna happen sometime, right?
Yeah. Same.
And then, and then in like 3.5 years ago, it was that moment, like that day, there was that I pretty much hit rock bottom, and it was just like, hey, if I want to not only get my life together, but just get my personal life specifically together. Because at that point, I was the regional operations director for 8 countries for a food delivery company.
Wow.
So in career-wise, like I was on top. But then personal-wise, in a personal sense, like I felt completely empty, like pretty much emotionless. And I was just chugging in, day out, 12 plus hours, working 12 plus hours a day, just thinking, hey, I'm building something, but pretty much for everybody else except for, not myself. And I was running from it. And yeah, that day it was like, I need to go to therapy and I need to start changing things. Right. And then, after a few therapies later, what happened was I finally, understood that what I had in my childhood was actually not a happy childhood, but it was actually full of trauma and stress and everything else. And then, I was going to say the flood zone just started to flood, like with all of the emotions, all of the trauma and the triggers that I had to deal with and that I'm still dealing with even right now.
Yeah, today, for sure.
Yeah.
That's the fun thing about trauma, you never completely, it's a party and it's both a good thing, bad thing, but you just have to constantly have the strength to walk with it. I always say that, not I always say, I don't know why I don't always go around saying this to just random people, but trauma is a funny thing too, because you can kind of outrun it for a long time, especially when you're younger and you're quick, you're in shape and you can just go and not think about it. And it's like a hand that just slowly finally grips you up by your ankle and you're like, and it gets you and it pulls you down. So you hit that rock bottom until you have to turn around and start kicking it and facing it. And then eventually pick it up and put it in your pocket and be like, all right, let's go on together. We got to walk with this together. So
Yeah, we do. And
Uh,
one thing that you mentioned was it's really interesting. Like, because apart from West Point, so whoever knows the military, I also finished Ranger School in the US. So a year later, and I never understood one thing was I was mentally way better prepared than the majority of people that were there. And I was just, pain was normal for me. Like, even when I was practicing soccer and stuff, like, I never had almost a day where I didn't feel pain in my muscles and all of that stuff, and even mentally. And when we were talking with my therapist, it was like, yes, because that's what made you feel alive. You had to have pain because you had so much pain with your trauma and the abuse that you had. There was this pain that you were pushing through. And when I was in Ranger School, notorious for like only sleeping an hour and a half to 2 hours a day on average, and then walking. So it would be like 800 to 1,000 miles in like 60 days. When there was like a lot of mental pain and stuff, like that felt like home to me. And it was strange, right? And after that, I realized, yeah, that's why, even though I by far wasn't the best soldier there, right? But mentally and physically, I was fitter because I could just push myself so much harder than others due to the trauma that I had. And at that point, I only need to focus on completing the mission of the task in Ranger School. And I didn't think about the other traumas that I had. So yeah, that was also one of the things that
Interesting.
the trauma produced.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of created this like Iron Man suit for you to kind of keep going. And yeah, the Army's like, oh, we like that. That's great.
Oh, the Army loves people.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee you that the majority of people in the military have some trauma, have some triggers that they just want structure because they didn't have that in the past.
I guess let's get into it in terms of, I guess that my question is, when you were in the military and like you kind of just said, it was actually, you were built for it in a way mentally because of everything you've come from. Was there ever an environment that made you feel vulnerable? You know what I mean? Because you talk about having that fortitude to just kind of keep going. And the Army's like, we like that about you. Keep going. You can shut all that other stuff out. Did you have moments of vulnerability or breakdowns, emotional openness and throughout that? Or did that really come much later after you got out?
So the only maybe real openness was possibly a few times. And that was more at West Point than anywhere else because I was with people that I trusted.
Yeah.
And just the breakdowns usually were you got drunk and you just poured your heart out. And one of the things that I loved about the group that I was with, it was like no judgment. Like, if you have a bad day, because we all had bad days, like straight up, whoever tells you that went to West Point or in the military that doesn't have a bad day or a mental breakdown of one sort or another is probably not being completely honest.
Yeah.
And at that point was like, hey, one day I had that, the other day my other friends had that, and it was just pretty much, hey, we're going to let you do your stuff and we're just going to make sure your ass is out of trouble and you don't get reprimanded and stuff like that. And that was legitimately the only time I can remember that I was able to be, completely like let my guards down and all of that until then I started going to therapy, which was then, 10 years later after after West Point.
Yeah, I find that fascinating because that's the same thing for myself, when dealing with just refusing to think about it or open up about anything like that. For the longest time, there would be pockets of it as it slowly eroded where I would open up or just give a little bit here and there and then go, and then kind of tighten back up and go back to my regular scheduled programming. You talked about burnout, and I feel like that's an important part, especially in today's society, as everyone has a side hustle, 4 side hustles, or they're in their business or somebody else's business, just running themselves down. What did you announce? You said, right? What did
2.5?
2.5. Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, I had 2.5 DUIs years ago.
Wow.
Let's jump into that if you don't mind. So what did what did those look like? What did that feel like for you?
So for me, all 3 of them were completely different. So the first one, I didn't even know I had. So I was out of the military when I became a plant production director for a manufacturing company. So leading 120 people, and I was, again, working day in, day out. I was there for everybody, like we did in the military. Well, one of the bigger things that goes in the business world versus the military is that people will stab you in the back. Like in the military, I legitimately had like maybe once or twice, but that was not a big one. And I always had people cover for me. At that point, I didn't. So I got into tons of pressure from my GM and people around me who just wanted to save their asses, right?
Yeah.
Like one of my big things that I say, and I always do, I'm always direct and I tell people, hey, this is what they think, this is what we do. Well, it turns out in the civilian world, it's not really good that you call your GM out in front of the whole team. And at that point, like that was 2 months of my being in psychological hell, and he did everything that he could to, make me quit. And then we kind of came into a mutual decision that I was going to quit. And at that time, like everything completely shut down. Like my whole neck, behind my neck, it was hurting. Like it was like almost like I could not move my neck. It was swelling completely. And that was like for about a month or so until I was able to kind of pick myself up. And then, for a couple of years, so actually 3.5 years, it was okay. And then when I was a regional ops director, a similar thing happened. At that point, I was working legitimately like 2.5 jobs. So I was a head of operations for Slovenia and then also regional ops director because we couldn't find anybody. And then our GM quit in Slovenia. So I was doing part-time at that as well with my other colleague, the sales director. So that was fun.
Oh my gosh. How many hours a day is it at this point?
Well, it was 12 to 14 probably.
Oof.
But at that point, because I still didn't understand my trauma and stuff, like I thought, like, hey, I was doing I know I was doing amazing work, but I was just chugging it along all the time. And then my boss changed, so in our region, and so one of the things that he did for the whole team was he put us into the PIP, so performance improvement plans, so the whole team, because his philosophy was if everybody's going to be pressured and stressed, they're going to be performing better. Needless to say, 80% of the team quit in 6 months. I got to that point that I honestly did not remember the last day that I was that I went into this job. I don't remember. I think I actually almost crashed with my car like twice, just because like legitimately, like I have a blank, and I was like, no, I have to go to sick leave, and I was on sick leave for 6 months at that point.
Wow.
And this is where I completely switched it around. So I was like, I don't want to work there anymore. I am not working 12 plus hours a day. And I said, I needed to do something else. So I got my coaching certification. And then like a little bit after that, also my coaching with neuroscience, coaching with brain coaching. So because I wanted to understand what the hell was happening with me. Like why it took me legitimately 4 to 5 months to actually get away from that burnout.
Yeah, recover from that.
Yeah. And because, in the positions that I was in, like legitimately my brain is the one that is pretty much what I'm offering. My product is my brain pretty much. And me having brain fog and burnout, I couldn't think of stuff that for sometimes were normal to me. Like in my last day on the job, actually, what happened was I was there for nine hours and I did the same amount of work that I normally would have done in 30 minutes. It was that bad. Like legitimately, nothing fit. Nothing was, I was looking at analysis and stuff and I was like, I have no idea what those numbers are. Whereas normally I would have been able to get cross-reference everything like just in my mind, right? So yeah, that was that. And then I decided like, I don't want to work 12 hours a day anymore. 8 hours is the max.
Yeah.
And that's how I came and became later on chief of staff for a career coaching company, completely remote. We were working with the US, with US clients, so military academy graduates. And that's where kind of like my switch in my recovery began. A year later, then I actually went on my own, and this is what I'm doing now. And the 0.5 burnout came after I started doing my own thing, and I was again under pressure, putting myself under pressure. And when I noticed those signs, I was like, nope, I have to do something different because it's not working. I'm following what others were telling me, oh, you need to get within 3 months, you need to get your first few clients, and then you need to get to 10K per month. And then you're going to go to 1 million per year, and all of those, I just say phony like goals, which don't have any meaning. And at that point, I was like, no, this is not what what I should be doing. I will put in my own goals, the ones that I feel comfortable with. And that's what I've been doing since. And I haven't had a burnout yet.
That's interesting. I love that you entered the military for structure because of the lack of structure that you grew up with and your trauma and stuff. And then you went to go coach on your own, and someone's like, "This is what you got to do. You got to hit this much by these 3 months, this much, and gave you
Yeah.
a beefed up, unrealistic structure. And
Yeah.
you were like, no, I can see where this is going. You
Yeah.
switch this up.
Yeah. And
Um,
it took like almost a year for me to completely figure it out. I was like,
yeah,
no, like I'm okay if I make, 32, 400, 4K per month. It's completely fine. The only thing that I need to do is I need to cover my costs. Like that's the bare minimum. Everything else is just a plus because I get to do whatever I want, or normally whatever I want, and I don't need to work
right.
10 hours a day. I work 6 to 8 hours a day. That's it.
That's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I coming from where I come from in kitchens and most of my work ethic, and it was different back in the day too. I think
Yeah.
that was always so celebrated back in the day, like work
Oh,
20 hours a day, like,
yeah, you are
yeah,
amazing, man.
exactly. It
Yeah.
was like, it was almost like a badge of honor after
Yes.
cooking, be like, I worked for 13 hours today. Like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I was supposed to work 7, but I worked 14. And, yeah, I mean, there's only so long a human body can keep going on that
Yeah.
physically and mentally. And it's scary when you point out you don't even remember going to your last day of that job because you were so fried.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're moving towards, for better or worse, in certain situations, we are moving towards a more, we're becoming more aware of mental health,
Yes.
obviously.
Yeah.
And I
Absolutely.
think society is pushing for shorter work days. So you're not
Yeah.
working 12-hour days because it's just not realistic.
And we can't, like, if you look at our brains, like the max amount of time in a day our brain can be productive is 6 hours.
Wow.
And that's with a lot of caveats, like not 6 hours in a single moment. Usually it's like in 90-minute bursts up to times a day. And you have to make sure that if you work 8 hours completely and somebody expects you to work 8 hours from 9 to 5, like I can guarantee you that person can only do maybe 4 to 5 hours of actual quality work. Everything else, they need either to rest or they will, be working. Oh yes, boss, of course I'm working, but they will not be working because it's not possible.
Yeah.
Like literally, your brain is refusing to work more. And for people that are working then 10, 12 hours, yes, you may get, you may be productive, but you'll never be in that peak performance where your brain is going to be like legitimately like in your zone of genius, that you could do way more than you normally can.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I feel that's very true. So, you've turned a corner, you've kicked off
Yeah.
your own coaching. What changed your philosophy on leadership and life as you entered that?
When, I started, the one thing that they will always tell you in the military, and I still support it, is like, you serve others first, right? You are a servant leader. I still support that, but with a big caveat. You have to serve yourself first, because if you don't take care of yourself, and you're not in this regard selfish towards your own well-being, your own mental health, you're not going to be able to serve others. Like, it's not possible, because you're just going to burn out and you're going to be left in by the sidewalk somewhere, and everybody else is just going to move towards their goal or whatever they're doing. So that would lead yourself first and then lead others, because in the long run, you are not going to be able just to serve everybody else, because you're going to burn out, and you will not be able to achieve or have such an impact as you would if you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Initially. Yeah.
And that's usually the first person that gets forgotten about when you try to push and make some real changes and work yourself to a different level. You kind of just forget about yourself.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
is for sure. So how did in terms of like everything you've come from, how did your definition of success evolve as you got older?
Yeah. So for me at the beginning, so if we look at my childhood, success was finish college, because I was the first one in my whole family tree that finished college. So, and especially West Point. So that was a big one. Yeah. And then get a job that's going to pay, like, and at that point it was like, get a job that's going to pay more than the minimum wage, because in most of my family, pretty much they were either a little bit above minimum wage, and that was it, right? So for me, just leaving the military, because in Slovenia at that point, even officers, we were really close to minimum wage. and me getting like a nice pay bump, like as a plant production director, like, or a huge pay bump. It was like, yes, I succeeded.
Yeah.
I am great in the private world and business world. Perfect. And then it changed towards successes when I make, others successful, aka other leaders, that I build them up, and then that I help everybody else around me, which led me to working 12 plus hours a day. And again, burning out. And now that I've done the mental health work and figuring out my trauma and stuff, success for me is, what do I want? Right? Not what others are telling me, which which we already discussed, right? Hey, Blaz, you need to go to 10K per month because that is the definition of you being successful, because you are a 6-figure business now.
Right.
It's like, I'm okay to do 50, 60K per year. It doesn't really matter. Because for me, success is that I can take vacations whenever I want. If, let's say right now, that when we finish, if I want to go out and take a walk, I can do that.
Right.
And for me, success is, yes, I work to live, not live to work, pretty much. That's the best definition that I can give you at the moment.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Honestly, it's so true. As you get older, you realize time is where it's at, not money.
Yeah.
And, if you can make that work, so you can make money, for sure, but also your time is your time. I mean, that's the goal for sure.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Like I said, you work with a lot of high performers, entrepreneurs, and different leaders in different areas. Why do so many leaders and entrepreneurs live in constant overwhelm? Is that there's always this idea that they have to constantly be building?
Because, so in my opinion, it's because they're listening to everybody else but themselves. I mean, just look at today's social media, right? So the majority of the time I'm on either YouTube or LinkedIn, where I also post, right? And at the moment, you're going to be seeing at least 1/3 of the post on how are you falling behind if you haven't figured out how to build like AI systems or AI something, right? And or even the other one is, like, I think every 3 or 4 months, I get on LinkedIn like that crowd that is pretty much shaming you if you haven't woken up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. and haven't worked out and did all of the work until 8 a.m. and they start the work, right? A work day, which is complete stupidity and the biggest idiocy that I can think of, right? And then when we see, oh, this guy's successful, he has 50 million, he has 100 million, or we don't even know, they just tell on their profiles, hey, I built several companies to 8 figures or something like that, right? Which in the majority of cases, it's probably not completely true, right?
Yeah.
We're like, shit, I need to be exactly like they are. And then this is the definition of success, but it's the definition of their success, right? And when I start, or when I want to work with somebody, so an entrepreneur or a founder, one of the first things I ask them, what's your vision and what do you want from this company, or what do you want to build? And I always tell them, don't think about what others or what your family wants you to build, or what Daniel wants you to build, or what Blaz wants you to build. What do you want? And from that, we can build a sustainable business. So I have I'm working with a financial coach right now, right? That I love. When we first met, he was like, look, Blaz, I'm well off. I want to help other people, financial coach, and I really want them to succeed, right? But I only want to work from Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. hours a day. Can we make my business revolve around that? And I was like, yep, that's no problem. That is what you want, and this is what's going to happen. So if you have that clarity, because he does, and I believe that he could definitely build $1 million business just from financial coaching and all of that, because it's really needed. But he doesn't want to. He was like, I don't need to. I want to enjoy my life. I want to drop off my kids at school in the morning. I want to pick them up every day in the afternoon. And I want to spend my afternoons quality time with my family. And that for him is the definition of success.
Yeah.
So what do you want is legitimately the question. Not what your family wants, not what your society wants, or what they're pressuring you. What do you want? And when you have that answer, that is when you're going to feel fulfilled and also happiness. And that you're successful.
It's so true. And it's really interesting too, because just kind of like how we talked about that work culture shift that you see everywhere. You work 12 hours a day, yada, 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 until you burn out. There's also a flip side of that with this entrepreneur or this like push yourself, to build your own business thing on
Hustle culture.
that. Yeah. Hustle culture, where it's like the other flip side is like, yeah, yeah. Okay. Don't be a slave to the system. Get up
Yeah.
at 4 a.m, run 5 miles, go to the gym for an hour, make breakfast, jump on your lap. Like there's this whole other side. So no
Yeah.
matter where you go, there is a very so on social media, there's a very fake version of it, right? And
Oh,
there's
yeah,
always,
absolutely.
like you just said, that's really important for people to hear is that's this person's success. That's what their success looks like and sounds like to them. That doesn't, you just need to sit down and find out what it looks like and sounds like to you.
Yeah. And so one of the things so I also listen to, especially on YouTube right now, like Alex Hormozy, right?
Mhm.
So I love his advice, but I don't agree with his methods, right? So he's like, I have monsters, I chug them and all of that, right? And to his credit, he legitimately said, look, I love working 12 hours plus a day. You don't need to, because I love doing that. That is my definition of what I want to do. If you don't want to do that, then choose your own path, because this is legitimately the only way that you are going to be happy, and that you're not going to be regretting things when you're 80 or 90 years old about like, oh, I could have spent more time with my kids. I could have spent more time with like family traveling and stuff. Because, dude, when we're 80 or 90, our bones are going to hurt. We're going to be suffering probably, right? We're not going to be as functional as we are right now. So enjoy these years that you have. Build something for yourself, but build it because you want to, not what others sell you.
Right. That's so true. So this is a question I had because I feel like I'm similar in a way. I feel like I reached a certain point in my life where then I got discipline, right? So, you joining the military to get discipline, and then you've carried that in a version throughout your entire life. How can someone build discipline if they've never themselves have had it, right? If they're looking like, that's a big part of if you
Yeah.
want to start your own business, if you want to, break free of the 9 to 5, so to speak.
Yeah.
But how do they build that discipline?
First, be compassionate to yourself.
Mm.
People are saying like, oh, it takes 30 days to build a habit. True. But it also can take a day for you to destroy it completely.
Yeah.
Like, and the first thing is, as I said, be compassionate. It's okay that you're not this. It's okay that one day you don't feel like working or something like that, right? So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is, what do you want to do? Do you want to coach? Do you want to build something? Do you want to do systems? I don't know, like whatever you're good at and whatever you're passionate at, because those kind of have to intertwine. Where you're good at and where you're passionate at. If you're passionate about something but not good, just learn it. Because in most cases, when you're passionate, if you have a passion for something, you're probably good at it. You have a talent somewhere in there. You just haven't developed it yet. Life takes its toll, right? And then if you know that it can be profitable, so kind of like the 3 Ps: passion, profit, and performance or profession, right? That you're proficient. When those align, then you probably have a business.
Mm.
And the way I kind of went with mine, right, was I had two really different approaches. The first one, when I had a coach and, they were like just pushing me, hey, post on LinkedIn 2 to 3 days, 2 to 3 times a week, and then just DM everybody and you're going to get your clients. Yes, that is successful, right? And I did get a couple of clients, but that wasn't me because I was dying from the inside. I didn't want to go onto those 15-minute meetings every single day, like 5 times a day, because I felt icky and yucky.
Yeah.
And now the way I switched the goal, right? We still network. That's how, we met. And this is how I meet like 2, 3, or 4 people per day. But I go there with, hey, how am I going to help them?
Right.
What can we get from each other? How can we help each other? And then along the way, I get a few references. Hey, maybe you could help this person or you could help this person. He or she could be your client. And what's happening now is I'm enjoying this. I was super excited, to get on the call with you right now to record this. And after we're done, I have another networking call in an hour or so. And I'm super excited. Again, I get the energy from it. And I'm not wasting the energy that, for me as a trauma survivor and still going through trauma, I have only a limited amount of energy that I have to allocate strategically throughout the day. And specifically today, let's say, is one of the days where I woke up with a lot less energy than I normally would have. It's just because the day and I'm processing some of the trauma. And I didn't know that yesterday. And then now I really need to make sure. And the last thing is, what is success to me? But right now, success for me is I pay all the bills and that's it. And the rest of the time, I may work right now like 4 to 5 hours because a day, or even not that. And then I have all of the weekends off because I'm focusing on my mental health right now more than my business. And that for me is success. Even if I make 20K per year, it doesn't really matter. For me in Slovenia, that's fine.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I think, you nailed it. It's again, as you get older and you start realizing your time and your mental state is really, that's success for sure. That's awesome. Yeah. Seems like you're killing it over there, Blaz.
I hope so. It doesn't feel like that. That's, most of the time. But what I always say to people, and also like who ask me for mental health and stuff, always look where you were 3 months ago, 6 months, and 12 months ago, and where you are right now. Right. This is always what I do. And even I did it this morning. Since I felt really down, it wasn't a good morning when I woke up. So I laid in bed a little bit more. So I left my bed at like 10 a.m. instead of, let's say, normally at like 8:30 or 9, which is completely fine, guys. Like, you don't need to wake up at 4 a.m. It's okay to be a slob or like sleep in at times. And I said like, oh, where was I 12 months ago? Or even, damn, like I was in a way worse place than I am right now, mentally, business-wise, and everything else. And then I felt better. I was like, yeah, I am improving. I'm doing the work.
Right.
But if you're if you're a trauma survivor and an abuse survivor, you know that it takes years to unravel all of that. You can't do it within a month or two. It's simply not possible because of the way our brain works. And that's completely fine.
Yeah. It's, you want to, don't focus on the past, right? Don't focus on the past, keep moving forward. But it's also important to take a gander behind you every once in a while and just take note of where you are comparatively.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Because one thing I'll just add here is when everybody says like, hey, just look at the future, our subconscious doesn't understand that. Because if we look at our brain, right, we have so just a really basic one. We have our primal brain, or we call it reptilian brain. Then we have our limbic brain, which is in the middle of so our emotions, our memories are stored there. And then we have our prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain. The only brain that can understand passage of time, so today, tomorrow, the next day, is our thinking brain. Our safety mechanisms, our danger mechanisms are in our primal and our limbic brain. Those don't understand the passage of time. For those, my defensive mechanisms that are still up were the ones that I developed when I was 2 or 3 years old. They don't understand that I am 37 right now. I am in a safe environment. I am in the apartment, in the office. If something is going to trigger me, it's going to revert back to when it understood that I was safe if I did that action. So when we're talking about the passage of time, we're only thinking with less than 5% of our brain, or the one that we're thinking about less than 5% of our time. So we also need to understand that it will take time, and our subconscious is way more powerful than our conscious mind.
Yeah.
We need to legitimately bash it into submission to say, you're safe now. You don't need to be scared of, opening the door on if somebody knocks, because that was also one of my things. Like I was like, oh, something's going to happen. Something's going to be really bad. It took me a few years to just figure that one out. It's like, hey, I'm safe. Nobody wants to hurt me. But it takes years, unfortunately.
Yeah. If someone out there is listening, feels stuck, burned out, or behind in life, what would you tell them?
First, what do you want from life? What do you want from first your professional and personal life? Figure that thing out, and then switch jobs. Like, try and switch jobs as fast as you can, because in most of the cases, the people you work with are the ones that are causing this for one reason or another. Possibly also home, but you can't focus on all of that, right? And if you have some savings, you can take a month or two off. You're going to be fine. As long as you have the savings, and go and find something else. It doesn't matter what you do, just take care of yourself first. Because in the end, if you lose the job and you're burning out in a job that you hate, one thing is for sure that if you leave or quit, or if you burn out, and especially in the US where you have at will employment, that they can, if you go on sick leave, they can just tell you, hey, you don't need to come back tomorrow because we're just firing you.
Yeah.
Trust me, they will not think about you the next day. They will just put you in the sidewalk, and they will find somebody else that they can do the same thing to. So just remember that you have one life, and you have one mind, and like Eminem said, one opportunity at life, pretty much.
Love that. That's great. Let's see here. What does Braving the Brightside mean to you personally?
That one also definitely evolved, but
Yeah.
braving it is, for me, is confronting things that I'm scared of,
Mhm.
and the things that were really difficult for me at one point. And then when we are looking at the bright side, right, braving the bright side is going through them, across them, or achieving and braving the success to get to the bright side, to that shiny side where I can say, I've made it, I'm successful, and I can live my life the way I wanted it on the bright side.
Beautiful. Amazing stuff, man. Ross, let's talk about where you're at right now, where people can find you, what you're doing, services you are giving out there, and yeah, talk about what you're doing.
Yeah, so the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm always active there. So just go and say hi, connect with me. I don't bite. I do actually respond, and I love to network. So if you want
Yeah.
to have a chat with me, I will network with anybody. I will never pitch on a networking call, so it's not a pitch. But if you want to work with me, so if you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur that is slowly building their business, would love to have a chat. And what I say, and I've actually just changed a little bit of my motto, is if you're a coach or a consultant, or if you provide any service, I'm gonna let you be in your zone of genius. I'm gonna let you coach, and I'll do everything else. So if that feels appealing, yeah, again, connect with me on LinkedIn, and we'll take it from there.
Cool. I'll have all that. I can have your links set up too in the description of the episode as well.
Perfect. Awesome.
So, Laj, this has been great. You know what I really like about your story? You've got a good Braving the Brightside story. A couple big words in there that we love here is trauma and discipline and burnout. You know, all that stuff that is relatable, that is human, that is honestly sometimes doesn't get talked about a lot. And it's cool to see how you utilized discipline when you didn't have it when you're younger, and how you morph that into what works for you. Really cool story, man. So
Thank you.
really want to thank you for being on the bright side with me today. And yeah, wishing you all the best, brother.
Thank you. You too. And thank you for having me on the episode. It's been amazing.
Awesome. You take care of yourself, man.
You too.
A big thank you again to Blaz Marolt for joining me on the bright side. I really appreciate the honesty he brought to this conversation. You know, there's something powerful about hearing someone talk openly about discipline, pressure, burnout, success, and the long road back to yourself. So much of this conversation circled around the idea that sometimes what looks like strength on the outside is really just, I don't know, raw survival on the inside. I think that's something a lot of us can relate to. We push, we work, we achieve, we tell ourselves we're fine because we're still functioning. We keep going, but functioning and healing are not the same thing. At some point, life asks us to stop proving how much we can carry and start asking why we're carrying so much in the first place. So I hope this conversation gave you something to sit with. Maybe, you know, a little permission to slow down. Maybe a reminder that success means very little if it costs you your peace. If something in today's conversation stirred something in you, or if you just need someone to talk to, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out anytime at bravingthebrightside@gmail.com or find me on Instagram at braving the brightside. And if you've got a story you feel called to share, well, maybe your voice is one we need to hear on this show. Hey, listen, thanks for spending a little time on the bright side with me today. Until next time, keep braving it. One step, one sunrise, one honest conversation, and yes, one moment of self-compassion at a time. All right, John Ralphia, say goodbye. We will see you guys next time. You guys take care of each other. I'll see you.